Hola amigos, bien o no, y saludos desde Inglaterra. Hoy el tema es que en verdad nosotros sabemos cómo podemos mejorar nuestra nueva lengua, nuestros estudios en nuestra nueva lengua. Porque nosotros en nuestra vida normal tiene muchas tareas y cosas que nosotros hacemos cada día sin pensar, pero hacemos en una forma de fluidez. Y cuando nosotros reconozco esta, puede ser mejor para convencernos que también nosotros podemos mejorar nuestra nueva lengua para un nivel de fluidez. Ese es el tema de hoy. So, hello again from England. Mixed weather today, but not as cold, which is good. But anyway, theme of the day is that if we stop to think about it, really, we already know how to get to fluency in our new language. Because in our normal day-to-day lives, there are many things that we do, lots of tasks we regularly perform with what we could say in many ways is fluency, in the sense that we do the task perfectly without problems and without really thinking about it. And this is not just speaking in our maternal language, because clearly we do that kind of automatically, we don't think too much about that. But there are plenty of other things we do, whether that's maybe even something like driving our car, or lots of other tasks we perform during the day where once we've attained a certain proficiency with it, we don't think about it anymore. And we continue to do these things very well, but at a kind of like unconscious level. And this should be the clue to show us that even if we are starting learning our new language as adults, so we don't have the advantage that we see as children learning a new language, actually, if we apply the same type of repetition and to some extent the degree of tenacity that we approach normal tasks that we have to perform as adults, that we have to learn how to do, new jobs, new skills we attain in other ways, the same principles we use there really apply pretty much for language as well. The only difference is when we come to have conversations with other people, we have to think faster. And that's perhaps where we feel more stressed and more worried, because we notice more clearly our sense of discomfort, the fact that we don't feel fluid in our responses, and perhaps because we feel that we're more likely going to make a mistake and we feel very self-conscious. But if we leave that aside, the mechanics of learning what to do is very similar to learning another more mechanical task, like learning how to drive. Once you learn where all the levers are, it's just practice, really. And after a point, you don't think about where the levers are, you just ask where we're going. So there is something in that. Once we practice some of the more basic conversational forms and we're happy with how we sound, this is rather like getting used to where all the levers are on the car. Once we can start to forget about those and concentrate more on where we're going, it's a bit smoother. So some of the things we've been talking about over the last months or so is really how we as adults, when we're learning our new language, can try and get past this feeling of being very self-conscious because we can't speak in the way that we're used to speaking in our normal language. And this, I think, is really the problem. So it's to try and compress the time, the practice you had as a child in your native language by picking areas of conversation that you now as an adult normally talk about and forgetting the rest. Because in this way, it helps you focus on things that are useful and interesting to you. It reduces enormously the amount of vocabulary you need, and it helps you focus on one or two aspects technically, in as much as some of how we sound, checking that you can do some of those kind of pronunciation exercises properly, and understanding a few bits of the grammar as you go, but basically feeling happy that in this context of conversation on the topic that you're familiar with, there are only so many kind of questions you would generally need to ask, or people would ask of you. You can practice for those, have things to say, and then your confidence level will increase. So rather like driving a more modern car where lots of the mechanics in much older cars is now taken care of effectively automatically, so you have less to do. Similarly, if we approach the language learning a little bit in this way as adults, we just focus on the things that we need to do specifically, or things we're more interested in. We kind of take away a lot of that mechanical difficulty, and then we can focus on the repetition in an area that's going to be useful for us. And if at any point we think, oh, it's too much, I'll never do it, we just need to look at around us at things that we're already doing, like our jobs, like the other tasks we perform generally, that when we were children were difficult. Someone had to show us how to do that. We had to practice how to do that. So it is just to remind ourselves that with time and consistent practice, we can still get to where we need to go. But to try and get us past that hurdle, that barrier, if we like, of us feeling really self-conscious, a bit stupid, I'm not saying it as clearly as I would like, rather than trying to think of the fluency as all the words possible in the new language, just focus on the few areas that you normally talk about, things that you are interested in, or the things that you particularly need to talk about. Reduce it down as much as you can. Just focus on those. And use that practice to bring up your confidence level, and then you can widen the vocabulary to include more of the language generally, and then obviously as you get more relaxed in talking about the topics you know about, more general conversations become a lot easier, because you'll always at least feel you can talk about that particular thing. So think of it like that. Even when it does get difficult to practice and you think, oh, it's never going to get any better, why am I doing this? Truly, you know a lot more than you did when you started, and you're closer than you think at being at a point where you can feel quite relaxed once you're talking on that particular topic you know a lot about anyway. Focus on that, get really good at that topic, and then take that confidence and use it into other areas. Because the rest, just like learning to drive, is just the repetition. So with that happy thought, we'll say cheerio.